It all began with a single message. A text. No warning. No build-up. Just words on a screen that, once seen, would unravel my entire life. And when it came, I wasn't prepared. It was a Friday evening, the kind of evening where the weight of the week hangs heavy on your shoulders. I had no plans, and honestly, I was relieved. My wife, Maddie, was out with her friends for a girls' night, a rare occasion that she had been looking forward to for weeks. So, I was home alone, just me, the couch, and a cold beer. I was scrolling mindlessly through my phone, barely registering the texts from random acquaintances, when her name popped up. I need to tell you something. It was a simple message. No hey, or how's your day? Just a blunt, direct statement that immediately sent a jolt of anxiety through my body. At first, I thought it was a joke. Maddie liked to send me random, out-of-context messages to get my attention. But something in the tone of this one felt different. It felt too serious. I stared at the screen for a moment. I tried to brush it off. She was out having fun, probably just thinking about something random. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I typed back. What's up? You okay? The 3 dots appeared. She was typing. Then, just as quickly, they disappeared. For a few minutes, the silence felt deafening, like the air had thickened around me. My heart started to beat a little faster. I had no idea what was coming, but I was starting to feel it. Then, the text came through. I'm seeing someone else. It wasn't the words themselves that shocked me. I had suspected something was off for a while now. The little changes in her behavior, the sudden increase in her girls' nights, the way she would avoid my gaze when we were together. But hearing it in black and white, seeing it confirmed in the harsh, blunt reality of a text message, it was something I wasn't prepared for. For a moment, I just stared at the screen. My hand went numb, and I couldn't make sense of the words. Was this a joke? Some kind of cruel prank? I wanted to scream. I wanted to call her right then, demand answers, but I didn't. I just froze. I knew I had to respond. But what could I say? What could I do? There was no question in my mind that everything I thought I knew was about to fall apart. So, I sat there, in my living room, feeling the walls close in around me. My mind raced through 100 possible responses, but none of them felt right. Instead, I typed, "Who is he?" I hit send and waited. The air felt too thick to breathe, and I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears. The phone screen seemed like a window to another reality, a reality that was now starting to shift in a way I could never have imagined. The response came after what felt like an eternity. His name is Adam. He's someone I've been seeing for a little while. The words hit me like a wrecking ball. Adam. The name was like an ice pick to my chest. Adam. I didn't know any Adam. Who was he? What did he have that I didn't? Was it something I couldn't offer? I sat in silence for a long time, the phone heavy in my hands. I should have been angry. I should have screamed, shouted, demanded answers. But all I could do was sit there, dumbfounded, processing the words she had just typed. Why? I typed. I needed to know. Why had this happened? What had gone so wrong? Her reply was almost immediate. I don't know how to explain it. It just happened. I've been unhappy for a while, and I thought I could fix things, but I can't. I think I've known for a long time that this was going to happen. I didn't want to hurt you, but I couldn't keep lying to you anymore. The honesty of her words made me sick to my stomach. She had known. She had known for weeks, months, and she had kept it from me. All the nights, she came home late. The days when she was too tired for anything. All of it. Was this what it had been about? Was this why she had pulled away? Had she already made up her mind long before tonight? I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to hear that she had already checked out of our marriage, that someone else had filled the gap I hadn't even realized was there. But the truth was right in front of me. No more pretending, no more lies. She had moved on. And here I was, still stuck, still trying to make sense of it all. I could feel my grip on the phone tightening, the urge to throw it across the room bubbling up inside me. But I didn't. I just sat there, numb, trying to breathe through the shock that was gripping me. The silence stretched between us like an unspoken truth, and all I could think was, what now? I don't remember when I started to type again, but my fingers moved almost on their own, slowly, methodically, like I was in some sort of trance. How long? I typed. I needed to know how deep this had gone. How long had she been seeing him? How long had she been lying to me? Every word felt like a stab in my chest. I could feel my breath quickening, my heart pounding like a drum in my ears. This wasn't just a betrayal. This was my entire world crumbling down in front of me. It only took a few seconds for the reply to pop up. About a month. A month? A month. My mind couldn't process it. In that month, we had been laughing together, planning our future, making dinner like we always did. I could almost hear the echo of her laugh from last weekend as we shared a bottle of wine. I had no idea. I had no idea she was already checking out, emotionally, physically, and mentally, long before she admitted it. That month had been a lie. I had been a fool. I stared at the screen. The words "about a month" danced in front of me. I thought about the moments we shared, the memories we had made, and everything felt like a lie now. How could she have done this to me? We had built a life together, a life I thought was stable. And now, with a few words on a screen, it was shattered. I didn't respond immediately. I couldn't. There was nothing I could say. My thoughts were a blur, each one louder than the last. Who was this Adam? How did he make her feel something I couldn't? Was it me? Did I do something wrong? I needed clarity. I needed answers. I didn't want to beg. I didn't want to appear weak, but I couldn't stop myself. Why him? I asked, my fingers trembling as I hit send. What did Adam have that I didn't? Was he someone she had known before? Was he just a rebound, a brief escape from the reality of our relationship? Her response came swiftly, almost too quickly. It's not about him, not really. I felt so disconnected from you for so long. I don't think I ever really told you how much I've been struggling. I've been pushing you away without even realizing it. I thought I could fix it on my own. But Adam, he was someone who listened. Someone who made me feel like I mattered again. I could feel a rush of emotion swelling inside me, a mixture of anger, sadness, and deep frustration. She didn't even mention love. It wasn't about love. It was about something else. Something I couldn't give her, something she had to find somewhere else. The way she described him, it sounded so simple, so easy. He listened. He made her feel like she mattered. How could I have missed that? How could I have been so blind to the fact that she had been slowly slipping away from me? Did you ever love me? I typed, my eyes blurring with unshed tears. It was a question I didn't want to ask, but I needed to know the answer. Had I ever been enough? Or was I just another part of her life that she grew tired of? There was a long pause before her response. A long, painful silence that dragged on and on until I thought I might explode from the anticipation. Of course I did. But sometimes, love isn't enough. Sometimes, it's just not enough to fix everything. I wanted to love you, but we've been so disconnected for so long. I felt alone, even when we were together. I thought I could be strong and figure it out, but I couldn't. Her words cut through me like a knife. She loved me, but it wasn't enough. She felt alone, even when I was right there. I could feel my whole body tense as the weight of her confession crushed me. I wasn't blind to our problems. We had been struggling for months. The late nights, the lack of communication, the emotional distance. But hearing her admit it so plainly, hearing her say that she had felt alone in our marriage, it shattered me in a way I wasn't prepared for. For a few minutes, I didn't know what to say. I just stared at the phone, feeling the cold air in the room settle around me. I was lost, drowning in the realization that the person I trusted most in the world had been living a lie. But I needed answers, and I needed them now. So what now? Are you leaving me? I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. The question felt like a death sentence, but I needed to ask it. I needed to know what was going to happen next. What did all of this mean? Her reply came quickly, but it didn't bring any clarity. I don't know. I need time. I don't want to hurt you, but I've already hurt you, haven't I? That was the moment I knew things would never be the same again. She didn't have the answers. She was just as lost as I was. She needed time. Time. That was what she had been telling herself for months, and now she was asking for more of it. I thought about the life we had built, the future I had envisioned. It felt like all of it was slipping through my fingers. The thought of her with Adam made my stomach turn. I didn't want to know the details, but a part of me needed to understand it. What did he do that I couldn't? But before I could ask, the phone rang. Maddie's name appeared on the screen. I knew it was her, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. What was I supposed to say? Hey, I know you've been seeing someone else, but are we still going to talk about our future? The irony wasn't lost on me. She had already made her decision. And now, I was stuck here, in the dark, trying to pick up the pieces. I stared at the phone for a few moments, my heart heavy, my mind racing. I didn't want to face her. Not yet. Not like this. But I knew the conversation would come eventually. And when it did, I had no idea how I was going to survive it. The phone stopped ringing after the fourth chime. Maddie had probably left a voicemail. I didn't check it right away. Instead, I just stared at the phone, my finger hovering over the screen, unsure if I was ready for the conversation that was about to unfold. Part of me wanted to throw the phone across the room, to pretend that none of this had happened. But another part of me, a part that couldn't deny the reality of what I had just learned, knew that I couldn't avoid it any longer. I swiped the screen, and there it was. Her voicemail. I hesitated for a moment, steeling myself for whatever she was going to say. I clicked it. Hey, it's me. I know you're probably upset. Hell, I'd be too. But we need to talk. When you get this, can you call me? Please. I don't want this to end like this. Her voice was shaky, filled with an uncertainty I had never heard from her before. Maddie, the woman I had shared my life with for over 5 years, was calling me, asking me to talk. But what was there to say? The damage had already been done. I was sitting here, in the very house we had called home, and she was out there with someone else. I didn't call her back right away. Instead, I sat there for a while, the weight of her words hanging over me like a storm cloud. How had everything changed so quickly? Just hours ago, I was sitting on the couch, completely unaware of the bombshell she was about to drop on me. And now, I was trapped in this emotional limbo, unsure of what came next. I had so many questions, so many things I wanted to ask her, but the one thing that haunted me the most was the question I hadn't yet asked. How long had she been planning this? Had she been seeing Adam before she even admitted to feeling disconnected? Or had this affair, if that's what it was, been something that had started recently? Either way, I wasn't sure which would hurt more. I finally decided to call her back. My hands were shaking as I dialed her number. It rang twice before she picked up. Hey, she said, her voice soft, but there was a crack in it. She sounded like she'd been crying, and it hit me harder than I expected. I wasn't sure if you'd call. I didn't know what to say. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. For a few seconds, there was just silence on the other end. I could hear her breathing. I could hear the same tension in her voice that had been in her messages, the same uncertainty. What do you want to talk about, Maddie? I finally managed to say. My voice came out a little colder than I meant it to, but I couldn't help it. This wasn't the woman I had fallen in love with. This wasn't the woman I thought I knew. I know I've hurt you, she said, the words coming out in a rush. I never wanted to. This wasn't how I planned it. It just happened. I don't know what to say. I've been lying to you for so long, and I don't even know how to make things right. I could hear the guilt in her voice. But I also heard something else, something I hadn't expected. Was it relief? Was she finally free from the burden of her secret? Or was it just that she had no idea how to fix what she had broken? How long, Maddie? I asked, the words feeling like they were ripping through my throat. I had to know. How long have you been seeing him? There was a long pause, a painfully long silence that made my heart race. And when she finally spoke again, it wasn't the answer I had expected. It wasn't about him, she said, almost defensively. It wasn't about Adam. It was about me. About how I felt for so long, like I was living in a shadow of who I am. I didn't feel like myself anymore. I lost who I was, and I thought I could fix it alone. But I couldn't. I let her words sink in. I had never imagined that the woman I married, the woman I had tried to support and love through every up and down, had been so deeply lost. Why didn't you talk to me about it? I finally asked, my voice softer now, a mixture of confusion and hurt. Why didn't you tell me you were struggling? Why keep it all hidden? I didn't know how, she admitted. I didn't want to burden you with it. I thought I could work through it on my own. And then, when I met Adam, it felt like someone finally saw me. Someone who didn't have expectations. Someone who made me feel alive again. Her words hit like a slap in the face. She had been so starved for attention, for something that made her feel seen, that she had sought out someone else. It wasn't just the physical aspect. It was the emotional disconnect that had driven her into the arms of another man. And worse, she was admitting it to me now, but I was the last one to know. And now, I asked, my voice almost a whisper. What happens now, Maddie? There was another long pause. I could hear her breathing, as if she was struggling with the weight of her own guilt. I don't know, she said quietly. I wish I had answers. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you, but I've been hurting for so long. I don't know how to fix it. I just don't know if I can come back from this. The words were final, and they hung in the air between us like a death sentence. I had thought that maybe, just maybe, there was still hope. But what she said next made me realize that the life I thought I had was already gone. "I don't know if I love you anymore," she whispered, and it was as if the ground beneath me gave way. I didn't respond. I couldn't. There was nothing left to say. And just like that, in a single conversation, my world had changed. The woman I had shared my life with, the one who was supposed to be my partner, was telling me that she wasn't sure if she loved me anymore. The love I thought we had was now a distant memory, fading with every word she spoke. The call ended abruptly. I didn't hang up on her, but she did. There was no goodbye, no "I love you." Just silence, followed by a quiet click. I sat there, holding the phone, staring at the screen, not knowing what I was supposed to feel. I wasn't crying, though my throat ached with the weight of everything she'd just said. I wasn't angry, either, though I should have been. No, it was something worse. Numbness. Complete, suffocating numbness. I dropped the phone onto the couch beside me and stood up, walking aimlessly around the living room, trying to make sense of what had just happened. My brain couldn't process it. A part of me wanted to scream, to demand answers, but all that came out was a hollow exhale. Maddie didn't love me anymore. She was with someone else. And I was just sitting here in this empty house, trying to piece together what had gone so wrong. The house we had shared, the place where we had built our lives, now felt like a prison. I wandered into the kitchen, opened the fridge without even thinking, and grabbed another beer. I wasn't thirsty, but the cold bottle in my hand gave me something to hold on to. I wasn't ready to face the reality of what had just happened, so I just kept moving, kept pretending it wasn't as bad as it felt. My mind kept replaying everything she had said, over and over again. How she felt alone, how she had tried to fix it, how she had found comfort in someone else. Adam. That name. I didn't even want to know who he was. Was he someone she had known for a while? Someone from work? Someone who'd stepped in when I failed to see the cracks in our relationship? I didn't have answers, only questions, and they were driving me insane. I slammed the fridge door shut and stood there, breathing heavily. What do I do now? I kept asking myself. What was my next step? She had dropped a bombshell on me, and now I was left picking up the pieces. I felt like a character in a bad movie, watching my life unravel, helpless to stop it. My mind drifted to the other questions, the ones I didn't want to face. Was this the end? Was this the moment where we both walked away, where our years together became just a memory? Or was there a chance for reconciliation, some way to fix this, even though I didn't know where to start? The phone buzzed on the couch. I didn't even need to look to know who it was. Maddie again. I stared at the buzzing phone for what felt like forever, trying to decide if I should pick up. I didn't want to hear more. I didn't want her to apologize again, to tell me how sorry she was. I didn't want any more empty words. But I knew that if I didn't answer, it would just hang over me, like a storm cloud, until I did. I grabbed the phone. It was a message this time. "I'm sorry. I know this is a lot. I know you need space. But can we talk tomorrow? I want to explain. I don't want to just walk away." The words hit me like a slap. She didn't want to walk away, but here I was, sitting in the wreckage of everything we had built. She didn't want to walk away, but she already had. It wasn't just Adam. It was everything that led up to it. She had already checked out emotionally, long before she started seeing someone else. I didn't reply immediately. I stared at the screen, then typed something that I didn't even think I could believe. I don't know what to say. And I didn't. I didn't know what was left to say. Words felt useless at that point. I wanted to scream, but all that came out was a quiet, defeated sigh. I put the phone down again, this time turning it face down. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Maddie's face. The face of the woman who was supposed to be my forever. But that woman was gone now, replaced by someone who was apologizing for something she couldn't undo. The woman I loved was now the person who had shattered everything we had. The next morning came too quickly. I felt as though I hadn't slept at all, and the haze of the night before still lingered. I needed to get out of the house, to clear my head, but there was nowhere to go. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. A place to scream? A place to think? Or maybe just a place where I could forget for a moment that my world had just been torn apart. I grabbed my keys and left. I drove aimlessly, the sound of the engine a low hum in the background. I don't know how long I was driving for, but when I finally pulled over, I realized I was on a road I didn't recognize. I had no idea where I was. I didn't care. All I wanted was to be somewhere, anywhere, other than in my head. As I sat there, staring out at the unfamiliar street, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Maddie. It was my best friend, Tyler. I hadn't talked to him in a while, but I knew he could tell something was wrong. He always could. Call me. I'm here if you need to talk. I didn't respond immediately. I didn't want to talk. But part of me knew that if I didn't, I'd keep spiraling. I'd keep sinking into the void, and the loneliness would become unbearable. So I called him. He picked up almost immediately. Hey man, you okay? It was a simple question, but the moment he said it, I broke. For the first time since I found out about Maddie, I felt like I could breathe. I had to speak. I had to say it out loud, even if I wasn't ready for the words. No, man. I'm not okay. I don't know what to do. Maddie, she's seeing someone else. I don't even know who I am anymore. Tyler was quiet for a moment, letting me speak, before he replied, I'm so sorry, dude. You deserve better than this. For the first time in what felt like forever, I let myself feel something. Anger, sadness, confusion, and a deep sense of loss. It was all there, swelling inside me, and I let it all out. I just don't understand, I said, my voice cracking. How could she do this to me? How could she just leave? After everything we've been through? Tyler sighed on the other end of the line. You're going to get through this, but you need to figure out what you want next. It's not going to be easy, but you'll get through it. You're stronger than you think. I didn't know if I believed him, but in that moment, I didn't have any other choice. The day dragged on. The hours blurred together as I tried to avoid the gnawing reality that had settled deep within me. I had spent the morning in my car, not knowing where I was going, not knowing what I wanted. But when the sun began to set, I found myself pulling back into the driveway of our house, the place that used to feel like home, but now felt like a tomb. The door was still ajar, and through the window, I could see Maddie's things scattered across the living room. Her purse, her jacket, the shoes she had left in the hallway. But she wasn't there. She was out with him, with Adam. I stepped inside, the silence in the house louder than anything I had ever heard. The air smelled stale, like it had been waiting for something to change, something to break. And it had. I felt it in my bones. My heart was heavy, dragging me down with every beat. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at her, not at myself. I was just numb. The rage I thought I'd feel had dissolved into something deeper, something darker. I stood in the middle of the living room, the place where I had laughed, cried, and built a life with Maddie. But now, it felt foreign, like it belonged to someone else. My eyes caught the photograph on the mantel. It was from a trip we had taken to the coast 2 years ago, Maddie and me, smiling, carefree, our arms around each other, the ocean behind us. It felt like it was from another lifetime, a time before all this, before the lies and the distance that had slowly crept in. I sat down on the couch, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on my chest. I had to face this. I had to face her when she came home. I couldn't keep running from this. I didn't know what I was supposed to say, but I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. The phone buzzed again, pulling me from my thoughts. It was Maddie. I'm coming home. Can we talk? Please. I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the keyboard. What could I say? What could I possibly say to make sense of any of this? Sure. Come home. Let's talk about how you've been seeing someone else behind my back, how you don't love me anymore, and how I'm supposed to just accept it. But I couldn't send that. I couldn't be that angry, not right now. Instead, I typed, okay, we need to talk. I hit send, and then I sat back, waiting. The stillness in the room was deafening. I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall, the faint hum of the fridge in the kitchen, but it all felt so distant, so irrelevant. It didn't matter. None of it mattered. Minutes later, the sound of the door opening brought me back to reality. Maddie stepped inside, her face tired, her eyes bloodshot as though she had been crying. She looked at me, and for a split second, I saw the woman I once knew, the woman I had loved. But that woman was gone. The person standing in front of me now was a stranger, someone who had already checked out, someone who had already made their decision. She took a tentative step forward, her hands wringing the sleeves of her sweater. I know this is hard, she said, her voice shaky, but I want to try to explain. Please. I didn't say anything at first. I couldn't. The words were caught in my throat, trapped by the hurt and confusion. What could she possibly explain? She had already told me everything. She had admitted to seeing someone else, to feeling like she had lost herself in our relationship. There was nothing left to say. Do you still love me? The question came out before I could stop it, and it hung in the air between us like a challenge. I needed to know. I needed to hear it, even if I didn't believe it. Did she still love me? She didn't answer right away. She just looked at me, as though she was searching for the words. But the longer she stayed silent, the more I realized that the answer was no. If she had loved me, truly loved me, she wouldn't have let things get this far. She wouldn't have sought comfort in someone else. I don't know, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought I did, but I've been so confused, and I've been hurting for so long. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know how to fix us. The air between us seemed to freeze. I could feel my chest tightening, my heart sinking deeper. So this is it. This is where we end. The words felt foreign to me. This wasn't how I had imagined things going. We were supposed to get through this. We were supposed to fix it. But there was nothing left to fix. Maddie's eyes filled with tears, and she wiped them away quickly, but it was too late. I saw the regret, the guilt, but I also saw something else, relief. She had already made her choice. Adam was her escape, her solution, and no matter how much she cried or apologized, that fact wouldn't change. I'm sorry, she said again. But this time, the words felt empty. I never meant for it to get this far. I never wanted to hurt you. But it was too late for apologies. The damage was done. I didn't know how I was supposed to feel, but I knew that this wasn't the life I wanted anymore. I didn't want to be stuck in a relationship where love was just an afterthought, where I was left to pick up the pieces while she found comfort in someone else. I think you need to go, I said, my voice steady, though it felt like I was being torn apart inside. I think we both need some space. The words were harder than I thought they'd be, but they felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. I had finally said them. I had finally acknowledged that this wasn't something that could be fixed. I had to let go. Maddie stood there for a moment, as if waiting for me to change my mind, but I didn't. She nodded slowly, wiping her eyes again, and then she turned to leave. I watched her walk out the door, and the moment it closed behind her, I felt an overwhelming sense of emptiness. I was alone. The life I had known was gone. But somehow, even though the pain was still raw, there was a small flicker of something else inside me. Something that whispered, it's time to rebuild. The days after Maddie left felt like a blur, but in the fog of my thoughts, one thing was crystal clear. I had no idea how to move forward. I wandered through the house in a daze, lost in memories that seemed both distant and too close, as if I had been living in a dream that I was now waking up from. I tried to fill the silence with noise, turning on the TV, playing music too loudly, doing anything to drown out the thoughts that kept flooding my mind. But nothing worked. The reality of the situation hit me every time I stepped into a room, every time I sat at the kitchen table where we had shared our morning coffee, every time I opened the closet and saw her clothes still hanging there. I avoided contacting Maddie, though every part of me wanted to reach out. She had asked for space, and I knew I had to respect that, even though it felt like she was slipping further away with each passing hour. I couldn't help but wonder if she was with Adam now. Was she holding his hand the way she used to hold mine? Did he whisper in her ear the way I used to, promising her that everything would be okay? The jealousy that burned inside me was as sharp as a knife, but I couldn't give in to it. I couldn't let my emotions control me. Not anymore. I tried to keep busy, diving into work, burying myself in tasks that didn't require me to think too much. I threw myself into physical activity, working out harder than I had in years. It didn't help. It didn't change the fact that every time I closed my eyes, I saw Maddie's face, that look of guilt and sorrow mixed with something I couldn't quite put my finger on. Maybe it was relief. Maybe she had been carrying the weight of our broken relationship for longer than I realized. Maybe she was finally free. I found myself walking to the living room one evening after a particularly grueling workout, my muscles sore, my mind exhausted. I wasn't thinking clearly when I picked up the phone. The silence in the house felt too heavy, and for some reason, I decided it was time to break it. I called Maddie. The phone rang only once before she picked up. Her voice was shaky when she said, "Hello?" I didn't know what I expected, but it certainly wasn't the silence that followed. Neither of us said anything for a long time. I could hear her breathing on the other end, and I wondered if she was waiting for me to say something first. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if there was anything left to say. Finally, I broke the silence. "We need to talk." There was a long pause. "I know," she said softly. "I've been thinking about it a lot. I know I've hurt you, and I don't know how to fix that." Her words were like a cold slap, but there was something in her voice that made me want to believe her. She was genuinely remorseful, but I couldn't ignore what had happened. I couldn't ignore the fact that she had left me for someone else. I don't know if I can trust you anymore, I said, my voice breaking slightly. I don't know if I can even forgive you. There was another long pause. I could hear her take a deep breath. I understand, she said quietly. And I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I'm here if you want to talk. I didn't know what to do with that. What was there left to say? I had spent so many nights trying to figure out if I could ever trust her again, if I could ever go back to the person I was before all of this. But deep down, I knew that the damage was already done. The trust that had been broken couldn't be repaired overnight. I don't know what I want right now, I said, my voice filled with frustration. I don't know how to move forward. You don't have to figure it out all at once, she replied. Take your time. I'll be here. If you want to talk, if you want to yell, if you just need someone to listen, I'll be here. Her words lingered in the air, and for the first time since everything happened, I felt a slight glimmer of hope. But the truth was, I wasn't sure if I was ready to forgive her, or if I ever would be. I didn't know if I was capable of putting the pieces of our relationship back together after everything that had happened. I need some space, I said finally. I need time to figure this out. I can't make any decisions right now. I understand, she whispered. Take all the time you need. The conversation ended after that, and I sat there for a while, staring at the phone, feeling a strange mixture of emptiness and relief. I didn't know if I was any closer to understanding what had happened, but at least I was beginning to understand what I needed. I needed time. I needed space. And most of all, I needed to figure out who I was without her. The next few days were just as chaotic as the first. I spent my time between work and long runs through the city, trying to push myself to the edge of exhaustion so I didn't have to think about Maddie, about Adam, about what the future held. But even in the silence, the thoughts wouldn't leave me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. Every time I walked into the kitchen, I saw the empty space where she used to sit. Every time I reached for my phone, I wondered if I was making a mistake by not reaching out to her. I couldn't deny it anymore. I was still in love with her. But I wasn't sure if love was enough to overcome what had happened. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that maybe love wasn't supposed to be the only thing holding us together. Maybe we needed something more than just love to make this work. Maybe we needed trust, communication, and a willingness to rebuild everything from the ground up. And maybe, just maybe, I wasn't ready for that. Maybe I wasn't ready to open my heart to someone who had already broken it once. A week had passed since that conversation with Maddie. I'd spent most of it lost in my own head, pacing around the house, staring at the walls that now felt like they were closing in on me. It wasn't just the silence. It wasn't just the absence of her in the kitchen or the bed. It was the absence of certainty. I had no idea where to go from here, no idea whether I could ever look at her the same way again. I didn't want to forgive her, at least, not yet, but a part of me still held on to the idea of us. The thought of losing her entirely left a cold void in my chest. But life didn't stop. It never does. I had to get out of the house. I had to stop staring at the four walls that had once felt like home. The memories, once cherished, now felt suffocating, like ghosts haunting me at every turn. I threw on a jacket, grabbed my keys, and left. No destination in mind, just the need to be somewhere else, anywhere else. The cold air hit me like a slap in the face as I stepped out the door, and for the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe again. I found myself driving to a small park on the outskirts of town, a place I used to go when I needed time alone to think. The trees were bare, the ground covered in the last remnants of fallen leaves. It felt like the world was in a state of transition. Nothing was certain, but everything was still moving forward. And that was something I needed to see. I sat on a bench, hands buried in my pockets, staring out at the empty space in front of me. The wind carried the faint scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, and for a moment, everything felt distant, like I was observing my life from a far-off place. I wanted answers, but I wasn't sure what questions to ask anymore. What was I supposed to do with a marriage that had shattered? How could I rebuild a life when the foundation had crumbled beneath me? The sound of footsteps approaching pulled me from my thoughts. I didn't look up at first, too lost in my own confusion to acknowledge anything else. But then I heard a familiar voice. Hey. I turned to see Tyler standing a few feet away, hands shoved in his jacket pockets, his face drawn with concern. He had been my best friend for years, and even though I hadn't reached out to him in days, He somehow knew where to find me. I stood up slowly, unsure of what to say. Tyler had always been the one I went to for advice, the one who never judged me, no matter how messy things got. But today, I wasn't sure if I wanted advice. I wasn't sure if I even wanted to talk about it anymore. Tyler, I said, my voice hoarse. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. He raised an eyebrow, a silent invitation for me to keep going. I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts. I don't even know what I want, I admitted, feeling the weight of the words as they left my mouth. I don't know if I can forgive her, but I don't know if I can just walk away either. It feels like everything is falling apart, and I'm just standing here, watching it happen. Tyler nodded, his expression serious but understanding. He knew me well enough to know that I was torn in ways that I couldn't explain. He had seen me go through heartbreak before, but this felt different. This wasn't just a breakup. This was the unraveling of everything I had thought was real. I can't tell you what to do, man, Tyler said quietly. But I do know one thing. You can't keep holding on to something that's already broken. You need to decide if you're ready to let it go, or if you want to try and fix it. But don't do it for her. Do it for you. His words struck me harder than I expected. I had been so focused on Maddie's pain, on what she wanted, that I had forgotten about myself. I had been so lost in the past, in what we had shared, that I couldn't see that it was me who needed healing too. But what if I can't fix it? I asked, the question hanging in the air between us like a dead weight. What if I try, and it's just too broken to put back together? Tyler stepped forward, clapping a hand on my shoulder. Then you'll walk away. And that's okay. You can't change what happened, but you can control what happens next. You can decide if you want to keep fighting for something that no longer serves you, or if you want to let go and find peace. I didn't know if I was ready to let go, but as Tyler's words settled over me, I realized something. Holding on to the past wasn't helping me heal. It was keeping me stuck in a place of pain, of confusion, of what-ifs. I needed to make a decision. I needed to choose whether to fight for what was left, or to walk away and find something new, something better. The decision wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't going to be painless, but it was mine to make. Thanks, man, I said, finally looking him in the eye. I don't know what I'd do without you. Tyler grinned. You'd figure it out, like you always do. But just remember, no matter what happens, I've got your back. We stood there for a moment, just looking at each other, before I made the decision to leave the park. The walk to the car felt different, lighter somehow. Maybe it was the weight of my decision beginning to settle in, or maybe it was just the first step toward whatever came next. When I got back to the house, the silence hit me again, but this time, it wasn't as suffocating. It felt like a space where I could breathe, where I could finally begin to think clearly. Maddie hadn't come home yet, and part of me wanted to call her, to ask her to come back, to figure out if there was a way to make this work. But I didn't. I needed more time. I needed to be sure of what I wanted before I made any more decisions. The night passed slowly, and as I sat there in the quiet of the house, I realized something. No matter what happened, I was going to be okay. I was going to heal. And no matter how painful the next steps would be, they were mine to take. The following days weren't easy, but they were necessary. I kept my distance from Maddie, not because I hated her. God, I still loved her in some way, but because I needed to learn how to stand on my own again. I needed to rediscover who I was outside of her, outside of the broken pieces of what we once had. I threw myself into my work and spent more time with friends, catching up with people I hadn't seen in ages. Slowly, I began to feel a shift. It wasn't a dramatic change, and it certainly wasn't instant. But as the days went by, I started to feel more like myself again. I laughed harder, I slept better, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I was living again, even if it was in small, quiet ways. And then, after a week of distance, the phone call came. I had been expecting it, but I wasn't sure I was ready. But when I saw Maddie's name on the screen, something inside me shifted, something more hopeful than before. I knew that whatever happened, I was going to be okay. I answered. Hey, she said, her voice softer than I remembered, tentative, like she wasn't sure what to expect from me anymore. Hey, I replied, my heart beating a little faster. What's going on? There was a long pause before she spoke again. I've been doing a lot of thinking, she said, and I could hear the sincerity in her voice. I know I hurt you, and I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if we can fix what's broken, but I wanted you to know that I've been working on myself. I've been trying to understand what went wrong, and I just want to be honest with you. I listened closely, the words sinking in slowly. For the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of hope. This wasn't the woman I knew before the betrayal, but maybe that was okay. People grow, they change, and sometimes the hardest things in life become the catalyst for that growth. I don't know if we can go back to how we were, I said, my voice calm but resolute. But I know one thing. I've learned a lot about myself in this time apart. I've learned that I don't want to hold on to resentment. I don't want to live in the past, constantly reliving our mistakes. I want to move forward. Another pause. This time, there was a sense of relief in her voice. I've been thinking about that too. I don't want to hold on to the past either. I want to move forward, no matter what that looks like. For the first time in weeks, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I had finally let go of the fear that I would always be stuck in that moment, in that place of heartbreak. I was starting to realize that I could move on. I could rebuild, not just my relationship with Maddie, but my own life. I didn't need to be defined by what had happened, and neither did she. I'm not saying we're ready to jump back into anything. I continued, my heart still racing, but this time with a sense of peace. But I'm willing to try, Maddie. I'm willing to see if there's something left to salvage. But I need to do it for me. Not because I'm trying to fix you or us, but because I want to be whole again. There was a soft sigh on the other end of the line. I understand. I'm not asking for everything to be fixed right away, but I'm willing to take things slowly, if you are. And that's when I realized. This wasn't just about the two of us trying to piece together a broken relationship. This was about two people choosing to be better for themselves and, if fate allowed, for each other. We didn't have to be perfect. We just had to be willing to move forward, to heal, and to learn from the mistakes we'd made. We talked for a while longer, about everything and nothing. And when the conversation finally ended, it wasn't with finality, but with the promise of possibility. A new beginning. The next few months were filled with slow, steady progress. We spent time rebuilding the trust that had been lost, but we did it one step at a time. There were no grand gestures or promises. Just small, consistent efforts to show each other that we were capable of change, capable of healing. And as the months went on, I found myself laughing again. Not just for the sake of filling the silence, but because I genuinely enjoyed her company. One evening, we found ourselves sitting on the couch, sharing a pizza, the way we used to do before everything fell apart. We didn't have all the answers yet, but we were working on it together. There was no pressure, no rush. Just the quiet comfort of knowing that maybe, just maybe, this could work. You know, Maddie said, breaking the silence. I'm really glad we're doing this. I didn't know if we'd ever get here, but I'm glad we are. I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. Me too. I'm glad I didn't give up on us. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I believed it. There was still a long road ahead, but I wasn't afraid anymore. I had let go of the past, and I was ready for whatever came next. Whatever came, it would be better than where I had been. It was a new beginning, not just for me, but for us. And that, I realized, was all I really needed.